Hello friends at home. In this video I will be going over this sentence sorting page with you. The first thing I do is always the same. Take out my pencil and write down my name. Please make sure you write your name nice and neatly so that we can read it. I am going to get my handy dandy scissors out and cut along this bottom line. There's a nice dotted line there for you to follow. So I have this nice page here that I will be turning in, and then I'll cut around the outside track of these sentences to get rid of all that extra paper that's just going to be in my way. Now, what we are going to be doing on this paper, it's something that Mrs. Hatkoff and I have talked about, and we think that some of you need a little bit more practice in it because you've either gotten sloppy lately or you just didn't learn it correctly. Well, we're going to be looking at complete sentences versus incomplete sentences, okay? There are certain things that a sentence must have in order to be a complete sentence. And if it doesn't have those things, then it's not a complete sentence. So when you are writing in your journals, in your writing for your writing binder for the end of the year, when you are doing any type of writing in the classroom, whether it's in your Journeys book or in a math book answering one of the problem-solving questions, if you don't follow the certain steps that are required to make a complete sentence, then it's not a complete sentence. So you might as well have not done it at all. So you really need to start paying attention when you are writing, making sure you are following the steps. So before we even get to this, let's do a quick reminder here. What are the steps that make a sentence a complete sentence? Lily, give me one of them. It has to have an end mark, right? So when you are writing your sentences, they could be the most beautiful sentences. They could sound so articulate and wonderful. They could have nouns and verbs and adjectives and all the juicy details. But if you don't put an end mark on the end of your sentence, it's wrong. It's not a sentence. Okay, so we got to have an end mark. What else do we have to have, Sage? It has to begin with an uppercase letter. You could write 25 paragraphs, perfectly articulate, with beautiful language, with an end mark on every sentence. But if your sentences don't begin with an uppercase letter, they're not sentences. They're wrong. What else do we have to have, Ava June?
Finger spaces.
You got to have finger spaces between your words. And I say finger space, that's an estimate. Just making sure that you could fit your finger between your words. That way, when someone's reading your work, they can see where one word ends and the next word begins, okay? If you cram all your words together, you end a word and start a word and there's no space between them, it's wrong because it just looks like one jobbly, jubbly, goobly, gobbly, goop. It doesn't look like separate words. So you have to have end mark. You have to have an uppercase letter at the beginning. You have to have spaces between your words. What else must we have in order for it to be a sentence, Emily? It has to make sense. You could follow every rule of writing a sentence. Uppercase letter, spaces between your words, end mark at the end. You could have a noun and a verb. You could even have some juicy adjectives, but if it doesn't make sense, it's wrong. It's not a sentence. So as we look at the sentences here today, you need to be looking for those things. Blake, did you have something to add to that?
So, you think that not making sense, like, how, ring.
Right, so exactly. Now, so let's look at this first one, and they're going to try to trick you. So you have to be a really good sentence detective. This sentence says the pot of gold, and I'm going to zoom in. There is an end mark there. It's hard to see on the camera, but there is an end mark there, so you'll be able to see it better when it's in your hand. Okay, so I have an uppercase letter, the. I have an end mark at the end of gold. I have spaces between my words. Does it make sense? If I looked at you and said, Emily, the pot of gold. Does that make sense? Is that a complete sentence? No, it's missing something, right? You'd be like, what about the pot of gold? You need to give me more, right? So this is not a complete sentence, even though it has many of the components in a complete sentence, it's not a complete sentence. So for this one, we'll put some glue on the back of it, and we will glue it on this side where it says incomplete. It's not a complete sentence because it doesn't make sense. Okay, let's try another one. The rainbow is pretty, and there is a period there. Like I said, it's hard to see it on the camera. If I get really close, you can kind of see it, but it's easier to see when you're looking at it in real life. So the rainbow is pretty. It's got an uppercase letter, it's got an end mark, it's got spaces. Does that make sense, Victoria? Yeah, so that's a complete sentence. So put some glue on that one, and we'll glue it here in the column that says complete sentences. I want you to go through the rest. Pay attention. If you're not sure, ooh, is that a complete sentence or not? Think about, if I walked up to you and said that sentence, would you be confused? So if I walked up to you and said, she found 10 gold coins, that makes sense. You can understand. You're talking about a girl. She was looking for coins. She found 10 of them. But if I walked up to you and said, the green clover, you would be like, what? What green clover? That's not a complete sentence, right? So make sure when you read them, you ask yourself, is this a complete thought? Does it make sense, okay? So that's your first page for today. Have fun with it, and I look forward to seeing your sentence sorting. Bye, friends.